Now, some of these responses reflect a recognizably human fear of the unknown and a discomfort with the uncertainty of change. But this is not a time to act out of fear. This is a time to summon our national virtues of inclusivity, of diversity, of compassion and open-mindedness.
I believe you're going to see an explosion in homeschools. If this prevails, parents are going to look for private schools. Parents are not going to send their 14-year-old daughters into the shower to the bathroom with 14-year-old boys. It's not going to happen. This has everything to do with keeping the federal government out of local issues.
This is an incredible overreach by the Obama administration, like none that we have ever seen.
School districts are being told they must allow transgender students to use the bathroom they identify with, not the gender listed on their birth certificate.
That directive came down today from the Obama administration.
For example, someone who was born a boy but identifies as a girl would be able to use the girls' restroom.
Every public school in the country must let transgender students use bathrooms and locker rooms that match their current gender identity.
Now, tonight, schools are looking very closely over this joint letter from the Department of Education and the Department of Justice because it really could have a big impact when it comes to money.
Why can't parents and the public have input on this policy?
When we err on the side of fear, we amplify hysteria.
The issue had already boiled over in Fort Worth after the state's 5th largest school district said it would enforce a policy which includes letting transgender students choose the restroom they use, regardless of their gender at birth.
Taxpayers and parents should be outraged at this shocking violation and breach of the public trust. Get back to education, repeal the policy.
Public schools that do not comply risk losing federal aid.
The directive brought a defiant response from leaders here in Texas.
Democracy.
In Fort Worth, the new federal guidelines seem to intensify the debate rather than settle it.
Idaho Governor Butch Otter released a statement saying in part, threatening to withhold federal Title IX funding for failure to comply with this offensive attempt at social engineering only harms our children. It is unwarranted, unprecedented, and unacceptable.
News out of the South Loop. A man accused of an alarming crime against a little girl in a public restroom.
Right before Mother's Day, an 8-year-old girl goes into the restroom and a man who's either inside there already or follows her in.
And that's when police say this man, 33-year-old Reese Hartstern, walked in and targeted the girl, choking her and trying to lock her in a stall. The mother heard her daughter screaming and grabbed her.
It saddens me. I don't get why people do things like this. I really wish I could understand that, but I don't.
A leading early education academic says preschoolers should be introduced to the subject of same-sex marriage. The paper discusses the importance of political activism in the early learning sector. I mean, Shelley, we're talking about kids, you know, daycare, young kids, 3, 4, 5 years old. Surely a little bit too young.
What it is, it's just normalisation of everyone so that it's not there's a mummy and a daddy and that's the only option, but just say, yeah, some people have mummy and mummies.
I think that's what this article is pushing for, going into detail and having that political activism. And I've got a problem with that term as well. Yeah. Isn't it, Phil, up to parents? I want to tell my son at that age, anyone who loves each other can marry anyone, which is what we believe.
Except in this country.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Should be able to.
All education should start at home in one way, I think, Amelia, but I think age appropriate is a good sort of thought here.
Thank you both. We'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
The family of a man who was run over outside of a 7-Eleven after being punched and knocked out is now suing the convenience store and now hoping the videotape will help police find his attacker. A man started yelling at 32-year-old Marcus Gaines when he walked out of the 7-Eleven at Hubbard and State.
A short while later, the man punches Gaines in the head, knocking him to the street, unconscious. Then at least one person runs up and appears to steal his wallet. A crowd immediately surrounds Gaines. Then the people just walk away, leaving Gaines lying in the street motionless.
A group gathered around him and then dissipated as Gaines laid in the crosswalk for nearly 2 minutes, others walking past and doing nothing to help him. Then a taxi makes a turn and runs Gaines over.
Attorneys for the Chicago bartender say this didn't have to happen.
Like, who are we as people? Do we not love each other anymore where we can help? What about the neighbors, the bar that he left? What about, again, the 7-Eleven security guard? How do you just leave this guy and stand over him?
All right, developing right now at 6. People just stand by. Some even laugh as a man beats a woman. Hard to watch. Doesn't even begin to describe this assault. The reaction is just amazing. The video from North Philadelphia came to us from a Fresco user today.
Did anybody try to help the woman?
No one. Just bystander, just smiling, laughing, and just standing around like a normal day. No, like nothing really was happening.
You were in that neighborhood this afternoon, and I have to say, this is beyond disturbing. It's appalling.
It is. It is very troubling, Lucy, and police are investigating. They say they cannot believe that no one stepped in to help.
There's at least 10 individuals that are standing around watching this, approximately 5 males that are watching this, and no one is intervening in a female being beat this way in the middle of the day.
Dr. Farley, it goes beyond people just standing around, which is terrible enough. I mean, some people, you saw them. They're laughing. I mean, the other ones, they're recording. There are people smiling. I mean, what does this say?
It says nothing good. Let's put it that way.
In fact, Northeastern's example should speak to every one of us about the massive transformation that is taking place around the world. Northeastern's gone global. Our leading corporations are going global. Health and medicine and film are going global. And I think that everyone here, especially the class of 2016, understands that viscerally, internally, intellectually. You're about to graduate into a complex and borderless world. Today, we face a world that is much more complicated, less hierarchical, where non-state actors play a central role, where disturbing images and outright lies can circle the globe in an instant, where dangers like climate change, terrorism, and disease do not respect borders.
Police in Manchester have issued an apology following a terrorism training exercise overnight. There's been strong criticism after the fake suicide bomber yelled, "God is great" in Arabic before detonating an explosive. Manchester's mayor and crime commissioner called it ill-judged, unnecessary and unacceptable.
Police say what happened here last night was designed to mirror the details of past events, but that on reflection it was unacceptable to use a phrase which, as they put it, so vocally linked this exercise with Islam. A mock suicide bomber simulates an attack. His phrase, Allahu Akbar, prompted complaints, and Greater Manchester Police have since apologised. A gunman moved through the crowd as police arrived.
Attention please, this is an important announcement to supporters currently in the South and East Stand. Please remain in your seats waiting for further instruction and information.
Yeah, so I was in the area where you can have a beverage or food. My daughter was sitting in the seat in the North Stand, yes, Sir Alex Ferguson stand, and they announced right away, can everybody in this zone please leave?
UK police say the device found at Manchester United Stadium was not viable. Earlier, police announced they had carried out a controlled explosion on a suspect package at Old Trafford Stadium. The UK anti-terror officials say full search of stadium is taking place.
In September of 2014, the FBI retired its old fingerprint system and replaced it with the next generation. The $1.2 billion program sends digital fingerprints to agents in the field and uses facial recognition technology to help them track down terrorists. Today, NGI is fully operational, but the program is not without controversy. Government Matters' Diane Cho got exclusive access to the FBI's biometrics campus in West Virginia. It's an area so restricted, even our crew needed a background check.
Biggest concerns with face recognition technology are the fact that it can be used at some point in the future to track people as they move about through society.
Technology she believes one day could potentially blur the line between protecting civil liberties and national security. For Government Matters, I'm Diane Cho.
Dan, you're going to stay with us as we're going to talk about another incredible discovery. NASA's Kepler mission has verified the existence of over 1,000 new planets, 9 of which are considered Earth-like worlds that could potentially harbor life.
Stargazers around the world are being treated to a rare sighting today as Mercury takes a trip across the sun.
Mercury zooms around the sun often, but Earth, the sun, and Mercury rarely align. In fact, it's an event that NASA says occurs only about 13 times a century.
So it's a day of superstition that some historians think can be traced back to the crucifixion of Jesus. But if you think that the modern age has bypassed the mysticism of good and evil, think again.
Assume that our way of viewing reality is the way or the only way, again, I think, is to limit ourselves.
Man is accused of using the family poodle as a sacrifice, saying the devil made him do it. He said he had to make a sacrifice of a male, either himself, his 6-year-old son, or the family's white poodle.
And athletes accused. A high school lacrosse team's season suspended while police investigate possible animal cruelty. Good evening. It tops our news at 11. Grosse Ile Police and the high school are digging deeper into this case.
Players are accused of sacrificing a guinea pig, drinking its blood, and smearing the blood on their faces as some kind of pre-game ritual.
Reports are pouring in of a spiritual awakening that started in a local church and is now touching the entire region.
Among young people in southern West Virginia, we told you several weeks ago about how a circle of students praying was actually broken up by a teacher.
Well, since then, thousands have been attending revival services.
But today, it's the only place big enough to hold what many say is the greatest spiritual awakening in southern West Virginia history.
People will always be offended by the truth.
And if those kids felt discriminated against, they shouldn't have come in there. It was voluntary, and they knew that what they were coming into.
Beyond the discrimination issue, the foundation sent the Mingo Board of Education a letter saying by hosting such an event on school property, they were violating the Constitution.
We're coming together as the body of Christ.